Hi guys, this is Mahboob. I am starting a new series called as Meeting with Mahboob. So we would be giving this episode as the number one episode. So we wanted to bring a woman in the first episode itself. Uh, Second to that, we would be interviewing people from socio legal and political space or sphere. So we would be looking at people who have brought considerable amount of change in the society. So we would be interviewing people from different spheres, as I said. So today we have with us Miss Rachna Reddy. So she is a young, daring, and intellectually intimidating lawyer. She also has been an academic, and she has worked in the area of human rights. She, at a very young age, has a varied, resume. So we would be trying to talk with her how she studied and what are her inspiration and what are kind of things she has done in her life. So welcome to the show, ma'am.
Hello everyone.
Okay, thank you so much. So the first thing I would ask you is, can you give some information about your family,
My family, it's a small family. My husband, parents, my son. I have a 3-year-old son. My in-laws. So yes, that's about it. And of course, my extended family and cousins.
Excellent.
But we are a small family.
Right. So did you have any lawyers in your family, you emulated them, or what? How did you, do you have any lawyers or someone related to politics?
I don't have lawyers in my family per se. I have extended family cousins who have been lawyers, who are lawyers. Politics, not at all. My father, when he was very young, was kind of interested or participated in some student politics, I think about 35 years back or so, but not with the law or politics at all, in a sense. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So the next thing is, ma'am, could you bring some light on your education, your schooling, your college, and what you have studied, the education part?
I went to school at St. Anne's, Secunderabad, all the way up to my 12th standard. Then I did my undergraduation in mass communications and journalism from St. Francis. I was always interested in different kinds of social studies and social dynamics, be it political science or history.
Right.
So that automatically kind of propelled me towards law.
Towards law.
Yes, because it is a profession which is so closely related to society, politics, legality, logic, basically.
Logic.
So I think that's what gravitated me towards law.
Towards law. Was there any incident in your life which said that justice should be brought in by some means or something? Any life changing moment which said that let's become a lawyer and change things? Like, did you have such kind of incident in your life?
No, I mean, as dramatic as it may sound, everything in my life has been pretty mundane and normal. And about law, I was interested in it as a profession, as something that will bring about a change, if at all possible. But me bringing about a change wasn't necessarily related to my profession as a lawyer. I would say it is more. A karmic thing as well as legal profession coming together, because I was always interested in international law and human rights. So I am grateful that I got a chance to do that in my master's in the US after my law from ILS Law College, Pune.
Okay.
And when I was in UCLA itself, I started my internship at a human rights law firm,
Okay.
which later on turned to be my job as a foreign attorney in the US for 4.5 years. And when I was doing human rights law, it was predominantly asylum and refugee law, which is a huge part of immigration litigation in the US. So when I was thinking that helping people or trying to bring some little change, if any, may not be professionally, what's the word to use? empowering in the financial or other, what do you do for a job kind of a way, doors opened up. So I think it's karmic as well as the legal profession coming together.
Right. So my next question would be, like you have done your graduation here. Like, why did you decide to do your law from ILS Pune? Like, you had opportunities here. Why did you want to go to ILS Pune?
I always wanted to go to ILS Pune because it has a rich and varied history as far as legal education and profession is concerned. It has some of the best legal luminaries in the bar and the bench have come out of ILS Pune. It has a rich background, I think, from 1990, from 1924 or something.
Okay.
So that is the reason.
So how was the 3 years being spent there? Like, I guess you stayed at a hostel or something, and and also like what activities, what type of things did you do at the 3 years course in ILS Pune?
During 3 years of ILS Pune, it was fun. It was a lot of hard work, education. I interned with a famous criminal lawyer as well as a famous intellectual property lawyer. I did not stay in the hostel. I used to stay at an apartment, a rented apartment really close to campus. But it was lot of hard work, extreme amounts of legal education and focus on the same, and at the same time a lot of fun. Pune is a fun place.
Fun place. Would you like to name your senior, ma'am?
Oh wow, this is crazy. No.
Mr. Jetmalani.
Oh yes.
Did you intern with him?
No. Not as in Jetmalani, as in my senior.
Like
famous criminal lawyer. Yes. His name is Shrikant Shivde.
Shrikant Shivde.
Yeah.
Okay. So how different is the society of Pune, when you juxtapose with the society of Hyderabad? What kind of, different variables do we find in both societies?
Societies per se, I mean, they're both Indian societies, one south and one southwest Indian. But Pune, as it is, has been very progressive because of the fact that it has always been a university city. It started out being an older generation or retirement city, but then it has ended up becoming a university city. So you would invariably in Pune meet very few people from Pune as opposed to people from all over India, because Pune University is very well known. You have people from all over India as well as quite a few areas in Southeast Asia as well as Africa and even Europe. Coming to study there. So societally it is very varied, where you have the Puneri culture, Maharashtrian Puneri culture, as well as amalgamated with a lot of other external influences. So it's very young and very dynamic as well, and a great positive place to educate yourself. Right.
So how much has your perception on law changed after studying law?
My perception of law after studying law.
End of your LLB.
End of my LLB, well, when you're done with your LLB, you're very green behind your ears. You're yet not you've yet not come in touch with the hardcore realities of law and the practice of law in the way it is in the world it is today. When I was in the US and I was practicing and working there, that point of time, I thought my perception at that point of time was that it is very straight-laced and very precedent and stare decisis oriented. But when I came to India and I started practicing law here, I have realized that it is much more societally, politically, judicially oriented as well. So a decision is an order, a decision, a decree that you get is not so much only based on the black and white letter of the law or stare decisis and precedent, but it is a lot more based on the society, on the political dynamics of it all, and how the repercussions of the decision would have henceforth. So I think it's very, I would say, judicial activism is a lot less right now.
Okay. So you're looking at law. You started looking at law from a holistic perspective after you completed your studies. Okay. The next thing is, I read about your profile in your profile that you have done your LLM from UCLA. The first question is, why did you want to do an LLM?
I always wanted to do my LLM, my master's in law, to study more or to specialize in a specific area, and it was always international law and human rights.
Right.
It was more a question of when. So I chose to do it immediately after my LLB.
Right.
And when I applied to a couple of universities, I applied to UCLA and Duke and UPenn first.
Yes.
And I got my first approval from UCLA. And
Right.
since it's UCLA, I
UCLA.
thought why not? Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
A lot of top lawyers in the country, in India right now, have never done a LLM or a PhD. Like you have opted for a LLM, you have completed it, and also I've read that you are in pursuit of completing your PhD from a university in Europe. So like, how does that help you, in your practice?
LLM for me, more than the degree itself from a very renowned university, LLM has been growing up in life. I mean, from somebody who has had a very, I wouldn't say overtly sheltered, but normal life in India to growing up and taking care of yourself and being exposed to an entirely different culture and becoming a professional and doing well in your profession abroad. I think it has been more of life change as
Right.
opposed to just gaining another degree.
Right.
So LLM has been great, and the work experience after that has been greater.
Okay.
I really owe a lot to my mentor there who
Right.
worked me to death.
Right.
PhD, I wanted to pursue a little more into the international human rights aspect of it and how it plays out, country wise.
Right.
So that is the reason I started my PhD from the UK,
Right.
University of Leicester, which is in progress.
Okay.
I don't know when it's going to get completed, but I'm busy with the practice of law.
Right.
But it does bring a fresh perspective because of a deeper insight and education into that area. So I think that's how a higher degree
Right.
works out.
Okay. Why did you choose UCLA, Duke University, and others, ma'am? What was the reason for that?
I wanted to go to the best law schools in the US, and when I chose these universities to apply to, I chose UCLA because of the reputation it had as
Right.
far as international law is concerned, and I was also interested a little bit in the entertainment law
Right.
dynamics of it. It's
Right.
in Los Angeles,
Right.
and the weather is fabulous, and
Right.
yes, I got my GTA as well. I was a graduate teaching assistant.
Graduate teaching assistant.
Yes,
Okay, so ma'am, like the thing is, LLM generally in foreign countries has been a one-year course since many years. Recently, like India has also brought in and from the last 4-5 years, I guess, a one-year LLM degree. So my question is what is the cost of LLM at UCLA, and did you get any funding for your course?
When I did my LLM from 2005-6,
Right.
it's a one-year program, and I don't think you need any more than 1 year to finish your LLM. It was generally in the whereabouts of 30 to 40
Lakhs?
K. K
thousand.
would work out to I'm not sure in Indian
25 lakhs.
this thing.
That's
Yeah.
the tuition fee. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. But I was grateful enough that I went on a student loan, but I was grateful enough to get a scholarship
Right.
also based on my GTA.
Okay.
I was a graduate teaching assistant, so I got my salary as a teacher, as a graduate teacher
Right.
on campus, as well as a scholarship where half of my tuition fees were reduced due to that. So I'm grateful.
That was really great. Getting a
Yeah.
half waiver of your tuition fee is really great. The next thing is, ma'am, why did you not choose to do LLM from an Indian university?
For me, it was mostly it was I had always planned to go abroad to do my masters, and it was not so much about doing it here or doing it there. It was more about exploring the world, and I think those 5 years have made me more of a confident person who can deal with anything that's thrown towards her.
Right.
So I think the exposure of travel is much more important, was much more and is much more important to me than the actual reason for the travel itself.
Meet people from different cultures, different regions.
Cultures, try to acclimatize yourself to the same, grow up, take care of yourself, take care of your issues.
Right.
And I think that has been the greatest learning experience, and of course the degree is the bonus,
Right.
the cream.
Right. And why did you not choose UK universities, ma'am? They are like UK universities are older, than the US universities. They are also reputed. You can also get, amazing, education from a lot of law universities in the UK. Why did you not choose it from the UK?
Well, I did not have, it boiled down to either USA or UK. I applied to a few in the US, and I
in the
was
UK?
about to apply to a few in the UK, but
Okay.
I also had a couple of family living in the US, so I
Right.
think it was more the timing as well.
Bit
So
of-
yeah, so I got the admission and I just went ahead with the US.
Okay. So how is the student community in UCLA, ma'am?
The student community is very vibrant, dynamic, and extremely progressive. So you would see a very liberal, progressive student community which is from all over the world. I mean, absolutely, you should put spots on the globe. So you meet people from all over the world. And considering the fact that these are the coasts of the United States,
Right.
and invariably coastal cities attract more diversity as opposed to the internal cities
I see.
in the US.
And
So
why is that so?
that's because people usually gravitate towards the coasts in the US, and that is the reason why you see mostly the coastal areas, cities being much more developed or
Yeah.
more known
I
or
see.
more preferred for
New
as
York.
New York,
San
Los
Francisco,
Angeles,
LA.
San Francisco, Florida,
Right. Cities of
Georgia.
Florida,
Yeah,
cities of
yeah,
Florida.
yeah.
Thank you. So, ma'am, like my next question is, how is the LLM being studied in your what do you call UCLA? Like, is it a trimester or like a semester system? How many credits do you need, and like put some light on that.
LLM in the US was at that point of time a semester system. I'm not sure what it is right now. Probably it's a trimester. It was a
How many semester did you have?
2 semesters. Two
Okay.
semesters annually from August to April. The typical semester, the typical annual semester year we have here. So it was, I needed to take 20 credits
Right.
and I overloaded myself with the maximum allowed. I took 2 credits short of the maximum allowed, that was 36 credits. I
Right.
took 34.
Right.
I did not have to do that. At this point of time, I wonder why did I.
Right.
But yes, you can choose any credits from any school, including School of Arts and Entertainment and Cinema, or
Right.
languages, etc.
Right.
As well as law.
Right.
So it is a holistic study of law, because law cannot be studied separately or otherwise than from society, logic, and culture.
Right. Right. Ma'am, like, what did you not like about UCLA, and what did you not like about ILS Pune? Both colleges.
That is tough. UCLA was fun. ILS Pune was
What
also
was
fun.
missing there? What was missing in ILS Pune? What was?
I think I was homesick sometime
Both places?
in both places, but then
Okay.
that wore off.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
How different is law taught at US universities and India, ma'am?
law in the US is a lot more broad-based and socially oriented. So after the first year, which is the basic year where you have to study all legal courses including your constitutional, contract, criminal,
Right.
civil law, the second and third years you get to choose a variety of optional courses at your convenience.
Okay.
And
In the US?
in the US.
Okay.
And based on those optional courses, you kind of end up deciding or gravitating towards a certain area or certain specific areas of law that you're inclined towards, be it public law or entertainment law or
Right.
international law, intellectual property, and all that. In India, that is still a little more Not happening
Okay.
so far, because all 3 years you have your compulsory courses, which
Okay.
need not be the case.
A defined syllabus.
Yeah, I think if you allow the student to define his or her own
Right.
syllabus, I think it
Electives.
would serve more. So the elective system has been introduced in India, I know that for a fact,
Yeah.
but it needs to get out there more.
Upgrade more. Okay, thank you. And like, did you get did you do any internships during your LLM?
LLM was so brief. I mean, it was just a year.
No,
so
no.
I did not do
No internships.
internships during my LLM, because I was also a graduate teacher.
Graduate teacher. So you
So,
had
so I was working
extra
as well.
responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Right.
was either going to classes or
Right.
going to my classes to teach.
Okay.
So after my LLM, immediately I was lucky enough to get my first internship, and
Right.
then which gravitated into my
Job.
job.
So you say that you stayed after your LLM about 4 years in the US. So was this pre-planned, or like you know you were thinking to work there for some time?
Nothing was pre-planned. I think when I actually made up my mind, I
Right.
decided to come back. So
Right.
the 4 years was fabulous job experience, because it was extremely hectic, extremely important, and very dramatic work.
Right.
As far as rescuing asylum seekers across the borders, and fighting their cases in court and before asylum officers,
Right.
bringing refugee status to people who cannot be returned to their native country. So it was fabulous work, and in the process of doing that fabulous work, I realized that I would like to come back to India,
Right.
and that's when I chose to come back. So staying there was I just went with the flow. So there was no
Right.
definite time when I decided that I want to stay in the US
Right.
indefinitely, or want to come back.
Okay. So did you work mostly in like international law and immigration law?
Yes, I did international law and immigration law only.
Okay.
And asylum and refugee is an important part of that. So my
Okay.
focus was in asylum and refugee
That would be
litigation.
a sub part of that.
Of
would say.
immigration
Okay.
law, yeah.
So next is like next question is, ma'am, how was the society at large different in US and India? What was the differences did you see in both societies?
Oh my God! If we have to talk about it, I think it will become a book. It's as
We need to
different
do a
as
separate interview for
yeah,
that.
it's
Okay.
as different as chalk and cheese. So I
Okay.
guess I think that's the end of the
That's it.
answer.
A big answer. Okay,
Yeah.
no worries. So you say that when you came back around in
2010.
2010. So about like what I have read is you have worked in Nalsar about 3 years or 4 years? 3 years as
academic
as a lecturer. So how did you land up this job, and yeah?
When I decided to come back from the US, so here is the thing. I never had a break with my work.
Right.
So when I decided to come back from the US, one of the things I also wanted to do, because I had already gotten very luckily and very accidentally into teaching. I
Right.
also used to teach in the US at
Right.
a
Yes.
master's at an undergraduate and master's business school in
Right.
Los Angeles,
Right.
which was simultaneously all the 4 years. So because I was also interested in teaching,
Right.
and I was enjoying it,
Right.
Nalsar was one of the things I looked up, and I applied
Right.
online itself, and I
Right.
was grateful enough to be accepted.
Accepted.
And as soon as I came back, I joined Nalsar.
How is teaching in the US different from teaching in Indian universities?
Teaching in the US is more hands-on.
Okay.
It's more hands-on and very practical, and I think the teachers there, the professors there also come to their classes to do what they do with a lot of homework in Tau.
Right.
So it is very hands-on, it is theoretical, it is extremely practical,
Right.
as well as it is I think they teach law the way it's supposed to be taught.
Right.
So I'm definitely conscious of the fact that Indian universities, more and more of these national universities and others, are following suit.
Right.
But I think there's a little bit of catching up to do, but
Right.
otherwise it's great. The Indian student is a lot more diverse that way, in the sense he or she gets equally acclimatized to the way of teaching in India as they do to the US or UK.
Okay.
Yeah, so our students do well everywhere.
Right. What subjects did you teach at Nalsar?
I taught predominantly international public international law,
Right.
international human rights law, international criminal law. I taught trial advocacy,
Right.
drafting and conveyancing,
Right.
and interpretation of statutes.
Okay, thank you. And next question is, ma'am, like you have like I want to bring it information to my viewers that Miss Rachna has taught about 4 years parallelly. Like she was working as a lawyer as well as she was taking classes. I think on the weekends or something, right?
Yeah, twice in the evenings.
Twice in the
Yeah,
evenings.
yeah, twice.
So she has about 4 years there and 3 years here. So
Yeah,
altogether,
so 7 years of teaching experience.
7 years of teaching experience. So you have seen an academic life. Okay, you have seen like more than 10 years, maybe more than 10 years of your like lawyering or like what do you
Yes.
say?
Yes.
What do we call like
Practice.
a practice litigation or like. So what was your like? How do you compare these two fields? Like which thing do you're like biased towards, or like what do you like more like?
That's a tough question. I love academia because I have realized that I can interact as well as connect with the students in front of me.
Right.
That I can say that I do a decently good job
Right.
with because I've kept friends, right from my triest with teaching in the US
Right.
as well as in India. I
Right.
work with several of my students who are now lawyers.
Right.
So I think I have a natural spark, if I may say so, for academics and teaching.
Right.
However, I think academia for me is a little bit, I think I'm a lot more socially conscious and social person. I'm not saying academics are not socially conscious, they are more so than
They're more nerdy.
anybody outside. Not even nerdy. I
Right.
think I'm a lot more social and I need a lot more vigor as far as work life is concerned. And I think litigation adds that
Right.
for me.
Right.
Litigation is very dynamic. You have good days, you have bad days, you have horrible days, you have
Right.
fabulous days.
Right.
It is very
Because of the
different
response from the bench, or
from the bench, from the client, from the kind of cases you get. So
Okay.
it's very dynamic and very powerful in a way. And when you do something right and it's
Right.
recognized and
Right.
it's recognized from all the sides,
Right.
who are parties to that litigation, it's a great high.
Right.
And with litigation, you kind of tend to probably change the course of the way things are going in
Right.
the legal front. So
Right.
academia is fabulous. Maybe I'm a little bit more towards
Right.
biased towards litigation.
Right. I would like to bring to the notice of my viewers that there is a famous lawyer called Ram Jethmalani. Like he was qualified as a lawyer at the age of 17. He tried to enroll himself as a lawyer, but he was denied because he was a minor at the time. So at the age of 18, like he was formally enrolled. So for 1 year he worked as a lecturer. So I think academics does help you, before you get into
Yes.
practice. What fields of law or what type of law do you practice presently, ma'am?
I have gratefully or and accidentally or karmic again. And I'm a great believer in the way things work out.
Destiny.
Destiny, yes. When I wanted to do my master's in international law and human rights, and I was very particular about doing it in that field only, there did crop up in my mind, like what is the professional consequence of this? I mean, it's great, it's romantic, and it's very important.
Right.
But at the same time, how will the professional ramifications work out?
Right.
Because I always thought about Geneva, the UN, and all that.
Right.
But invariably, all my 4 years in the US have been and only in human rights law. I never practiced corporate law so far.
Okay.
And even after and I was, of course, I was teaching corporate law and business law in the US, but
Okay.
my practice has always been in human rights.
Right.
And when I returned to India, I was teaching human rights, international criminal law, public international law.
Right.
And immediately when I entered into practice also, invariably,
Right.
the kind of cases I got
Right.
also have been in human rights and different areas,
Right.
be it with land related, service related, women related, children related. So Yeah, I think I'm destined to practice in human rights.
Okay, so do you mean to say that your practice is varied and but it has a lot of public law cases?
It has only public law
Public law
cases. I
cases.
think I have barely any cases which are not, which are only technically
Private
legal,
law?
private law
I
and legal cases.
During my research, there is some website which states that you work in corporate law. I'll give you the name after the interview.
I'm a standing counsel for income tax as
Income
well.
tax, yeah.
But most of my private cases
Right.
are all public law related.
And
I do practice corporate law also, but it's very, very minuscule.
right.
Right
And
now.
when were you made this standing counsel for this income tax, central government?
2 years back.
2 years back.
Yeah,
Okay.
2015.
Okay. So we have understood where you come from, your education, and what type of teaching you have done, and what type of education you have received. I would come now a bit to the thing which made you controversial recently. In January 2017, the CM of Telangana took your name in assembly. He was ranting and raving that this lawyer was going and what do you say? I don't know.
Stopping projects.
Stopping projects and doing something wrong, stopping welfare things which he wants to do. So can you bring some brief information, like give brief information about what was wrong,
Okay. Well, I mean, if somebody is not happy with it, then I cannot help it. But I would say that I think I was doing something right. No, I know for a fact I was doing something right, which kind of maybe irritated or stopped certain things from progressing at a rate that they would want to. But I would like to just talk about this much sallied and bandied term called development that everyone knows in a country like India, which is extremely complex, and the development has been happening in India at a stupendously fast rate. And considering the fact of our population, our habitations, our employments, our self-employments, everything, it is much more complicated and diverse and cannot be compared with the West.
Right.
So that is why the development or the ingress of any kind of a so-called development project,
right,
if they want to call it development, that's great. I mean, good luck with that.
Right.
Has to keep all of these things in mind.
Right.
And when it deleteriously, negatively affects most of the people, as opposed to these questionable positive effects that it will have,
right,
then the negative effects have to be concentrated on, and
right,
development cannot be just farcical or superficial and ought to be taken at face value itself, because development has to be sustainable,
right,
which is going to be for the benefit of each and everyone. And if it negatively impacts a great section of the society, then it is not development and all.
Right.
And the sad fact is that everyone, including the executive, legislature and judiciary, know what development in India means now.
Right.
And I think it's time that we take a proactive role as to microscopically check what development or infrastructure project that ought to be positively endorsed or
right,
allowed to progress further, and what so-called infrastructure development projects ought to be stopped right where.
Right. My next question is, ma'am, some TRS sympathizers were abusing you on social media, bringing your picture from social media profiles and all. How did this affect you?
It didn't affect me at all. No.
Okay.
I mean, I was just quietly, I was told about it from a well-wisher,
okay,
because I'm not a very active person on the social media,
right,
per se.
Right.
And so I was called and spoken about this, from well-wisher, and I was
right,
like, I don't have any idea about it. But it was like, you need not, because you need not go onto social media for some time. So that's when I came to know about it.
Right.
It did not affect me per se, because there are very, very few things and very, very few people that have that kind of power, and things like this, I think,
right,
happen.
Right. So you were seen giving speeches to farmers. Your role extended more than the court. You became an activist for this cause. How did you join this public cause, and how did you come close to Mr. Kodanram? Like, how were you invited to this?
I have, I've interacted with Mr. Kodandram for, quite some time. I know him for a while, and on issues we tend to agree, we agree on, and, work together on. As far as farmers' cause and acquisition and land issues are concerned, I slowly got gravitated towards it.
Right.
I got my first case a year back about coercive land acquisition. I took it up. We got a positive order.
Right.
That's when the farmers that's when the farmers from the village invited me to educate them about acquisition and what their rights were and
Right.
what were not.
Right.
And that's when I started going to these places to talk to them.
Right.
And to kind of enlighten them as to what their rights are.
Right.
So that's when the activist role has come about. So
Right.
so from then onwards it was both in court and out of court and visiting them at their places and
Right.
villages
Right.
that turned out to be what it is.
What is your observation on Mr. Kodandram's personality? Like, you say like you are in contact with him from some time. Like, what do you look at him? Like, in what perspective do you look at him? Like,
I think he's a very educated man who has deep and solid ideas as to what is right and what is wrong. So
Right.
him apart, I really respect people who do not confuse with the black, white, and the grey. And
Right.
he's one of those people who does not confuse between the black, white, and
Right.
the grey. So he has clear ideas as to what he thinks of issues and what he wants to do about it.
Right.
So I respect him a great deal as far as that is concerned, and he's also a very people-centric and people-focused person, and he
Right.
thinks a lot about issues that concern common men.
Right.
And issues that are important, that is life, livelihood, and a decent life for
Right.
you and your family. So
Right.
I think he's also very conscious of those issues, and being a political science professor, I think that comes naturally to him
Right.
as well. So yes, I hold a great
Okay.
deal of respect for him.
Right. Some political observers have termed it a Reddy versus Velama issue, ma'am. What do you want to say about this?
Like I've said it,
Like
all-
Kodandram Reddy, Uttam Kumar Reddy, and Rachna Reddy, and all other Reddys,
I
And
have
the government is like this, primarily, Mr. KCR is from the Velma, so, community, like they are saying this is a caste-based, problem.
Well, if people are so insecure about their own caste, then there's nothing much we can do about it. I never was very conscious, and I was never insecure about anything, let alone my caste.
Right.
The family or the so-called caste that I'm born into is by default, and if other people want to brand it into this caste-based dynamics, you're only taking your own state, which is very nascent and new,
Right.
back in time. So if you're insecure about your caste or not,
Right.
I can't speak for that.
Okay, thank you. I would like to bring to my viewers, what is your knowledge that, recently, like Supreme Court, recently came down heavily on trolls. Senior lawyers like Fali Nariman, Mukul Rohitgi say that they have quit social media because of, such trolls. Like, recently Ms. Rachna Reddy has, been a victim of social trolling, like, using images from her, social media page and, abusing her. So how much is cyber law developed to tackle such issues? Like, did you take any action on these people writing stories about you?
No, I did not actually, because if I have to start defamation proceedings, then I think I'll just be doing that and not anything worthwhile or
Right.
important with other issues.
That would be a full-time job.
Yeah, that would be a full-time job, because there was a certain TV channel also in relation to a case. They very strangely, and I was
Right.
embarrassed to see it with
Right.
my family.
Right.
Speak about the fact that I had threatened to commit suicide or something about a case. I was like, where do you even get that? I
Right.
mean, it takes a lot of creativity.
Right. Because some script writers turn into journalists, so you get into
So
that.
and there was no, the worst part was that there was a debate on that.
Right. Whether you wanted to do suicide or not.
So I thought
And
that
you
was
were watching
hilarious. I was watching that with my family. I mean, nobody told me about it.
Okay.
But I was, I was surfing channels and then what is this?
Right.
And yeah, so it was.
Can the public approach you for any such public causes in the future, ma'am?
Absolutely. I'm open to any and every public cause,
Right.
as long as it is what it is, a
Okay.
public cause.
And do you work pro bono, ma'am?
I do work pro bono, but working pro bono also has its limitations.
Right.
I do. I continue to and have already worked.
Right. For my
Right.
viewers, pro bono means a lawyer does not take any fees for his work. Sometimes lawyers do this because they believe in the cause a lot. So, and what is your schedule of your working week, ma'am? How do you work the whole week?
Well, throughout the week.
You just told me that on Sundays you don't do anything. So
No, I work.
Okay.
I
you don't
just
meet any clients.
Yeah, I don't
but
meet any clients because otherwise I will not be able to
Okay.
complete with
I
my
stand corrected.
backlog.
Okay.
I work. I mean, regular weekdays, mornings and afternoons till 4:30. I'm in the court because invariably we have cases and we have to wait for that and have our hearings.
Right.
And I have my office hours in the evenings.
Right.
And Saturdays I work the entire day.
Right.
Sundays I keep off only to complete the
Right.
work that I have taken on during the week.
Right.
So, and take care of some other aspects.
A hyperbolic question, ma'am. Hypothetical question, actually. When a senior, designated senior and a just graduated lawyer, okay, both lock horns in a case, how does the court perceive both lawyers?
Well,
Let's say they are both strong on their on their points. Like, how would the court see?
Well, the designated seniors always have an edge
Oh, I
everywhere, but judges have been very encouraging of juniors as
Right.
well. I mean, juniors in the sense I somehow don't like to use the word juniors and seniors.
Juniors.
Who
Small-
have come
small
out,
people,
younger people who have freshly graduated or a few years into the profession.
Right.
They're very encouraging and they give them an audience and a chance to hear out their arguments, and
Right.
quite a few cases there have been situations where the law has prevailed,
Mhm.
and irrespective of who has argued it,
Right.
and in quite a few cases the law has prevailed in favor of the
Young.
freshly
Fresh guys. Okay.
graduated.
Really
So
nice.
it's good, yeah.
How do you spread the news about public causes you're working with? How do you let people know that you're working on some public cause? Maybe you, your group, or something.
I actually don't have any specific medium. It's very random. So because people already know that I work on public causes, they bring public causes to me, and I associate with public causes that I absolutely believe in and are close to my heart. For example, the farmers' cause. For me, not just as an advocate, but that cause is extremely germane and important to me because I take that to be a life cause.
Right.
I come from a farming community family
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
So that is close to me, the farmers' cause. And that's also because they are a very disorganized lot, and where governments have forgotten them, centrally as well as in state.
Right.
With the so-called hyperbole, I would say, on industrialization, computerization, this and that. I don't know what you're going to eat 10 years from now, but
Right.
yes, they are a forgotten lot.
Talking a bit about your person, like, ma'am, like, I find you occasionally stammering, like, is it right?
I don't so much do that,
Occasionally.
but I shift gears when I do that.
Right.
And especially from Telugu to English and English to Telugu, which happens when I interview, and
Right.
this has been in
Like,
English. I do that.
Was this an impediment during your, growing years, like, were you stammering a lot or less, or like, was it an impediment?
It was never.
Never?
Never,
Okay.
never. And it doesn't even affect me in a conscious or unconscious manner.
Right. Also, a thing is, ma'am, like in some in some media interactions and all, like, it has been said and it has been observed that you're not so comfortable with Telugu and
Yes.
more in English. So you are coming from a Telugu family. You're living in Telangana. Like, what is the thing? Like, I also find, that is my personal observation. Like, you're short of words. Like, your vocabulary in in English language is too varied. Okay, too large. when it comes to Telugu, you're short of words a lot of times.
Yeah, that's unfortunately the way.
Why does this happen?
This happens because I think when
Telugu is your first language, I guess.
No, Telugu was my third language in school.
I mean, your family speaks Telugu.
Yeah,
right?
my family
So
speaks
that
Telugu.
makes it the first language. Then.
That makes it my first language, but Telugu has always been less spoken in my house.
Okay.
As I was growing up.
Okay.
So invariably that kind of changed my comfort level with the language as well. I write and read Telugu really well.
Is it?
That's I'm sure that's surprising to a lot of people, but as far as conversing and thinking, I think it's because I think in English and I fight in English. I'm much more comfortable with this language.
Okay, a bit about other lawyers, ma'am. Which lawyers do you admire most at India level and at this, this state level, like?
There are so many.
So many.
I don't even want to name one or two. There are quite a lot of them. They're all great.
Which courts do you practice most, ma'am? The High Court or the lower courts, or which courts?
I practice mostly in the High Court.
High Court?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any opinion on the recent Aadhaar case, ma'am, like on the privacy right case?
Yes, I think that right to privacy is absolutely fundamental and germane. And the fact of not making Aadhaar absolutely mandatory for everything, every germane or important or unimportant issue is also important to protect your privacy, because the kind of privacy laws that are in place abroad are not in place in India.
Okay.
So because of that, we become very vulnerable to invasions into our privacies.
Right.
Yeah.
Ma'am, have you read this triple talaq judgment or order or news about the triple talaq thing which happened?
I did not read the entire judgment.
You're not interested in family law, ma'am?
I am interested in it in a limited extent.
Okay.
And my practice in it also is very limited.
Very limited.
Yeah.
So now I have last two parts right now remaining. A bit about your some bit about your cases, and finally I would take some advice about for young lawyers. Okay, I'll just want to put some light on some of your cases. What I want from you is you can give some small brief facts, how it turned out, just maybe that would be great. About that the defamation case of the lady IAS officer, like.
I was dealing with the lady IAS officer's case for about 2 months, during which time the criminal prosecution, this summons were issued. And in the civil prosecution for civil case, we had just about filed the case when in the 2 months the government took over the case.
Right.
So, and also I was also at that point of time representing her husband in in a case related to that.
I see.
In the High Court, but then the government took over the case later on. I think now things are settled. I didn't follow up on that.
What
case.
I know about this case is like they were saying that they, I think Outlook magazine were talking about how she
has already apologized or something.
Apologized. So an apology would call for cancelling of case by you guys, or like what happened to the case?
I think it would.
Are they getting any damages? Is the officer getting any damages for that?
Like I said, right now I'm not
no idea about that.
No idea about that case, because I'm not in tune with that case right now. The government is looking into it.
Recently, you got a I think favorable order from NGT, National Green Tribunal. Okay, in October 2017. I think it's on Kaleshwaram project.
Right,
Can you put some light on that, ma'am?
The NGT gave a stay on the working or the construction of the project because of the fact that the statutory environmental clearances and forest clearances have not been complied with,
right.
Because no construction activity can be started on any infrastructure project without the statutory environmental and forest clearances. So there was a complete stay on the project. Now the High Court has vacated that stays based on the fact that most of the construction activity, or apparently allegedly, is
right.
related to drinking water,
right.
which cannot be differentiated, but other issues aside, that's vacated, and now I think the case is still progressing in the
What
NGT
is the
case.
government supposed to do now before implementing the project? Do they have to do some clearances?
They have to get clearances
Okay.
from the central government,
Okay.
from the Ministry of Environment and Forests. as far as environmental clearance and forest clearances are concerned.
Okay.
Because they started a project which is still continuing construction activity without these clearances, the NGT case was instituted.
Next is your Raitu Samanvaya Samitis. Okay, so what is this Samiti, and why were you involved in this case? This was in September 2017, I think.
Right. Raitu Samanvaya Samitis is this hilarious, thing where I called it hilarious because when there was an existing Panchayat Raj system, there is this GO appointing without any kind of rules or procedures or impetus as to how these samitis are to be set up in different villages and mandals in order to look into purification of records. Purification of records, of revenue records, is an extremely important thing, and putting it in the hands of I would say parallel body which has no constitutional sanction or validity is no justification. So that is why we challenged that GO that constituted these Raitu Samanvaya Samitis. And so the Samitis now are progressing, but the funding of the Samitis has been stayed.
So is this government
usurpation of power from the Panchayat Raj?
Okay, so as I think it was contended that this is a parallel thing to the Panchayat thing, but I think these guys were getting funding from the government or the party.
Funding from party, you do whatever you want.
These guys were also selected from TRS party, I think. The guys.
No, they are selected from the TRS. Party everywhere.
Okay, these are nominated, indirectly elected.
Nominated, brought on record, whatever. I mean, there's no method to that madness.
Right. The next case in the same September 2017, ma'am, a spy cam control case. What happened? What was the?
It was positively taken because the spy camera case.
What was the wrong and what was the what did you ask from the court?
We asked from the court is that there has to be certain guidelines in order for the sale, licensing of those spy cameras. Because why does an ordinary common man need a spy camera? How can you allow it to be made easily available and accessible online or in stores?
I see.
That is an equipment that is only related to intelligence activity.
Okay.
So it should be extremely, it should not be available.
Right. There are two types of people who would be using mostly investigative journalists, and you have some whistleblowers who want to bring out some wrongs.
Whistleblowers or even
how do they do it then?
Investigation agencies, even whistleblowers or investigating. I think only the home investigating agencies ought to have access to it, and the others license it.
Right.
But there is no licensing regime in place.
Right. Next is your minority medical colleges seat allotment case in August 2017. What was the wrong being done, and what were you asking from the court?
The wrong being done was that suddenly out of the blue, based on some agreements with the medical colleges, the A category convener quota was reduced by 10%, and the 10% of it was sent off to category B. Now this was this was a huge injustice played out on minority students who were meritorious but could not afford the kind of fees that category B and certainly
category A is, I think, the convener quota, the regular quota by which you get it on merit. Group B is, I think, the management quota.
And group C is the NRI quota.
NRI quota. And what was the wrong in the group 1 and group 2 case, ma'am? What was the wrong and thing, you said something about the answer sheet bubbling and all,
Yeah, I cannot go too much into the aspects of the case per se, but those are related to technicalities and the management of the examinations in the two examinations.
Right.
Yeah.
The next one is, ma'am, you were arrested, I think, in July. I think
yes.
You were arrested with Mulugu, Mandal, farmers and all. What was that fiasco?
I went there early in the morning to kind of talk to the farmers because they had contacted me several times to
Right.
kind of come and educate them about the new Amendment Act,
Right.
21 of 2017 to the Land Acquisition Act.
Right.
So I was going there early, just meeting them at 8:30 and then running off to court from there itself. It's about 30 kilometers from Shamirpet. When I was there just talking to them, it was just, the way we are sitting, outside our house, we are just sitting, and then a few farmers had gathered.
Right.
And we were just talking very informally. It wasn't even a meet of any kind, it was just an informal conversation with a few people, like about 7 to 8 or 10. When suddenly the cops swooped down and arrested.
Okay. So how you were in the jail? Is it you were in the custody?
I was in so-called preventive detention.
Okay.
After whatever they were trying to prevent, that is meeting farmers, was already done. So it was pretty much an illegal detention for an entire day, which wasted my entire day.
Were you eventually able to meet that farmers?
I met them and they arrested me on my way back.
Oh, way back.
Yeah.
What was the use of that?
I know. I asked them the same thing. I've already met them and
Right.
I'm on my way back to court.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, which political party do you like, ma'am?
I am not keen. I mean, my own private adult franchise, I will not tell you whom I vote for.
Okay, you can vote for any party, but like
Yeah.
maybe you like some policies of some parties.
No, I've liked at different times different policies of
Okay.
different parties.
Okay.
So I don't pretty much like or dislike any one political party.
Are
So
you
I think
interested
I'll
to
stick
join politics
that.
in the future?
Are you interested? I'm interested in politics as in I was always interested in politics academically.
Being a
as in
politician.
being a politician, now that's a tough call.
Right.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet,
Okay.
yeah.
And the last question is, ma'am, there are a lot of young lawyers. What would you give advice to them? Like you have seen a lot of academic career, you have seen a lot of litigation career. So people want to, get into what do you say, litigation career. Like there are a lot of ways to be associated with a legal career. You have LPOs, you have corporate law, you have litigation, you have a lot of things. So if someone wants to get ahead in litigation practice, so what would be your advice to young lawyers, ma'am?
Stick to it, because litigation can be a very tedious process. Tedious and not in the negative sense. It's not sudden that you get n number of cases from different sides and you have this raving practice. You have to stick to it. It's a
Right.
consistent effort to do well every day.
Right.
You have one case, you have two cases, you have 20 cases. Irrespective of that, you stick to it. It's very exhilarating because it's very different every day.
Right.
And it's time consuming, but it has such a great curve that it's worth every
What are
effort.
the skills like they should try to possess or like acquire?
Confidence, confidence, confidence.
Okay. Only three things.
Only three things. Vocabulary is important, but
Right.
then you see quite a lot of really great litigating lawyers who may not have the kind of varied vocabulary that
Right.
very few lawyers in India do.
Right.
But they are great with their task, with their craft, with the knowledge of the case, and with what they want to say to the
Do
judge.
they really need to join a seniors chamber, ma'am?
That has been the trend, but I also
Have you joined the seniors chamber before you got into independent practice?
I was working with a cousin of mine for a very brief period of time.
During the time of Nalsar or like
After Nalsar, for a very brief period of time when I was pregnant also.
Okay.
I have a 3-year-old son.
Okay.
So I would say that it helps.
Becoming acquainted with
With
prevailing
the preliminary nitty-gritties
procedures.
of practice.
Practice.
Because trust me, the LLB of 3 years does not equip you with that.
Right.
But once you have that, then I think if you want to explore on your own,
Right.
or if you want to do it with a group of like-minded people.
Would you like to bring a book or booklet on the recent projects you have stopped?
Well,
Book or booklet,
I
maybe
think,
some activists would be able to emulate or understand or use it in the future for their own purpose.
That's not immediately on the cards, but I think that's a good idea.
Very good idea. Thank you so much, ma'am. And this was Miss Rachna Reddy, a young and upcoming lawyer, and she has done some very substantial work in a very less time. So she has a lot more years to go. I hope she brings very good, changes to the society using her litigation practice. And thank you so much, ma'am, for coming on a meeting with Mahboob. And this would be the first episode. And thank you so much. And I hope we bring more interesting and educative, interviews with a lot of people in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mahboob.
Thank you.